In the land of Israel long ago, there was a young shepherd named David. David was just a young boy tending to his sheep in the fields, but he loved God with all his heart. He had older brothers who were soldiers, fighting in the Israelite army. One day, David's father sent him to deliver food to his brothers on the battlefield. When David arrived, he saw something shocking. The enemy, the Philistines, had a giant warrior named Goliath. He was over 9 feet tall, wearing heavy armor, and he shouted at the Israelites, challenging them to send someone to fight him. Everyone was afraid, even the king and the strongest soldiers. But David wasn't afraid. He asked, "Who is this giant that defies the army of God?" His brothers and others laughed at him. But David believed that, with the Lord, nothing was impossible. He had faced lions and bears while protecting his sheep, and God had helped him every time. So David went to King Saul and said, "I'll fight Goliath. God will help me." The king was skeptical but allowed it. Saul put on his armor on David, but David took off the heavy armor that didn't fit him and instead chose 5 smooth stones from a stream. With just a sling and his faith in God, David approached Goliath. The giant laughed when he saw the young boy. "Am I a dog that you come at me with a stick?" Goliath mocked. But David boldly replied, "You come at me with a sword and spear, but I come at you in the name of the Lord. Today, God will give you into my hands." David took a stone, placed it in his sling, and with a steady hand, he hurled it at Goliath. The stone struck Goliath right in the forehead, and the giant fell to the ground, defeated. The Israelites cheered as David stood victorious, knowing that God had given him the strength to win. David's courage showed everyone that with faith in God, even the biggest challenges can be overcome. The story of David and Goliath teaches us that no matter how small we may feel, with God's help, we can face our fears and accomplish great things. When we trust in God and step out in faith, we can face any challenge, no matter how big. Courage doesn't come from ourselves. It comes from knowing God is with us. One day, Jonah, a Hebrew prophet, was walking along a busy marketplace. Suddenly, God spoke to him in a deep, powerful voice. "Jonah, go to the great city of Nineveh and tell the people to stop their wicked ways." But Jonah replied, "Go to Nineveh? But they're our enemies. They don't deserve God's mercy." And instead of obeying, Jonah ran off towards a harbor. He found a ship heading far, far away. Jonah got on the ship and paid the sailor the fare fee, and then settled down as the ship started to sail into the open waters. He was going to sail in the complete opposite direction of Nineveh. But little did Jonah know that God was not happy with his decision, so he sent a big storm. As the sky darkens, strong winds begin to blow. Waves crash violently against the ship. The sailors panic as lightning flashes. "The storm is too strong. We're sinking," yelled the captain. "Wake up, pray to your God. Maybe he will save us," the captain said to Jonah. Jonah looks guilty as the ship tosses wildly and exclaims, "This is my fault. I tried to run from God. Throw me into the sea, and the storm will stop." The sailors hesitate, but seeing no other choice, they lift Jonah and throw him overboard. The moment he hits the water, the storm instantly calms. Jonah sinks into the deep, bubbles rising as he closes his eyes. Suddenly, a gigantic shadow moves toward him, a massive fish. With one gulp, it swallows Jonah whole. God sent a great fish to swallow Jonah, and there, in the belly of the fish, Jonah sat for 3 days and 3 nights. Jonah sits in the dim, eerie glow, surrounded by seaweed and water dripping from the ceiling. Suddenly, Jonah says, "Lord, I was wrong to run from you. I will do what you ask." As he prays, the fish suddenly lurches. With a mighty heave, it swims toward shore and spits Jonah out onto the sand. Jonah lands with a thud. Jonah stands, wipes himself off, and looks up. In the distance, he sees the great city of Nineveh. Once again, Jonah hears God's voice. "Jonah, go to Nineveh and give them my message." This time, Jonah doesn't run. He marches straight into the city. When Jonah came to the middle of the city, he loudly exclaimed, "In 40 days, Nineveh will be destroyed unless you turn from your wicked ways." The people of Nineveh, even the king, hear Jonah's message and repent, praying to God for mercy. Jonah then left the city and sat down. "I knew you'd forgive them, Lord. That's why I didn't want to come," grumbled Jonah. Then God said to Jonah, "Jonah, should I not care about these people? I love them, just as I love you. It was at this moment Jonah finally understood God. Jonah learned that God's grace and mercy is for everyone, even those we may not like. Imagine being your father's favorite child, given special treatment, while your brothers grow more jealous every day. This is the story of Joseph, a story of betrayal, struggle, and ultimate triumph. Joseph was the favorite son of Jacob, and everyone knew it. His father even gave him a beautiful, colorful coat, a symbol of love but also of division. His brothers, they hated him for it. I had a dream. We were binding grain in the field, and suddenly my bundle stood up while yours bowed down to mine, Joseph said to his brothers. So you think you'll rule over us? Keep dreaming, Joseph, exclaimed one of his brothers. But Joseph didn't stop there. He had another dream. This time the sun, moon, and 11 stars bowed to him. Even his father was surprised by this one and rebuked him. One day Joseph's father asked him to go check on his brothers in the field. So Joseph got up and went. When his brothers saw him coming, they said to each other, "Enough of Joseph and his dreams. Let's get rid of him. Let's throw him into that pit." At first they planned to leave him there, but then traders heading to Egypt passed by. Instead of killing Joseph, they sold him as a slave. And to cover their tracks, they told their father Joseph was dead, or probably eaten by an animal. Meanwhile, Joseph was on his way to a new and uncertain life in Egypt. Joseph was sold to a man named Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh. But even as a slave, Joseph worked hard and gained Potiphar's trust. Potiphar put Joseph in charge of his entire household, but trouble was coming. Potiphar's wife watches Joseph with interest, then grabs his robe. "Come with me, Joseph," Potiphar's wife said to him. Joseph refused. He was loyal to his master and to God. So Potiphar's wife yelled, and the guard of the house came running in. She accused Joseph of trying to attack her. When Potiphar heard of this, he got really angry and told the soldiers to seize Joseph. Joseph was thrown into prison for a crime he didn't commit. But even there, he didn't lose hope. He helped other prisoners by interpreting their dreams. While Joseph was in prison, two of Pharaoh's servants, the cupbearer and the baker, were thrown into the same prison with Joseph. Both of them had a dream that bothered them, and when they told Joseph about their dreams, Joseph said, "With God's help, I can interpret the dreams for you." So both the cupbearer and the baker told their dreams to Joseph. Joseph said to the baker, "In 3 days, Pharaoh will execute you." Then to the cupbearer, Joseph said, "In 3 days, Pharaoh will restore you back to your position. Please remember me when you are free." But the cupbearer did not remember Joseph. Years went by. Then one day, Pharaoh himself had troubling dreams. No one could interpret his dreams until the cupbearer remembered Joseph. Pharaoh told him to bring Joseph to him. Joseph was brought before the Pharaoh. Pharaoh told his dreams to Joseph. After he was done, Joseph said, "Your dreams mean 7 years of great harvest, followed by 7 years of terrible famine. You must store food now before it's too late." Pharaoh was amazed. He made Joseph second in command over all of Egypt, in charge of preparing for the famine. When the famine came, people from all lands came to Egypt, including Joseph's brothers. The brothers kneel before Joseph, not recognizing him, while Joseph hides his emotions. Joseph asked them to bring their younger brother Benjamin with them next time they come for food. Joseph's brothers agreed and went back home. A while later, Joseph's brothers come back for more food and brought their youngest brother, Benjamin, with them, even though their father really didn't want Benjamin to go. When Joseph saw his youngest brother, he was moved to tears and hid from them. Joseph wanted to test his brothers to see if they have changed. He asked one of his servants to put his silver cup in Benjamin's sack of grain and then go after them and accuse them of stealing it. Then as a punishment, Joseph said, "Whoever stole my silver cup will be my servant." But Judah, his older brother, said, "Take me instead, because our father won't be able to handle the loss of Benjamin." Seeing their remorse, Joseph couldn't keep the secret any longer. Joseph takes a deep breath, then reveals himself. "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" exclaimed Joseph. The brothers looked shocked and terrified. They expected revenge, but instead, "Don't be afraid, you meant to harm me, but God used it for good, to save many lives," said Joseph. Joseph embraced his brothers, and all of them were crying from joy. He invited his whole family to Egypt, where they lived in safety and plenty. Joseph's story is one of betrayal, patience, and forgiveness, showing that even in the worst times, God has a plan. Long ago in the mighty kingdom of Persia, there was a man named Daniel. He was wise, honest, and faithful to God. Because of his good character, King Darius trusted him and made him a top ruler in the land. But not everyone liked Daniel. Some jealous men in the kingdom wanted to bring him down. They searched for a way to trap him, but found nothing. Daniel was loyal and upright. Then they came up with an evil plan. "O great King Darius, you should make a new law. No one can pray to anyone but you for 30 days. If they disobey, they must be thrown into the lion's den." King Darius was flattered and really liked that idea, so he signed the law with his royal seal. Daniel knew about the new law, but he loved God more than anything. So he continued to pray, just as he had always done. The jealous officials spied on Daniel and saw that he is not following the new law that King Darius put in place, so they went to the king to report this. "Your Majesty, Daniel has broken your law. He still prays to his God." King Darius was heartbroken. He liked Daniel, but the law could not be undone. So with a heavy heart, he ordered Daniel to be taken by the guards and thrown into the den of hungry lions. When the entrance to the lion's den was closed by a stone, King Darius says quietly, "May your God protect you, Daniel." King Darius went back to his palace and passed the night fasting. He didn't eat or drink, and he couldn't fall asleep worrying about Daniel. In the early hours of the morning, King Darius rushed to the lion's den, shouting anxiously, "Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you constantly serve, been able to save you from the lions?" Daniel answered King Darius, "Yes, O king. God sent his angel to shut the lions' mouths. They have not harmed me because I trusted in him." King Darius was overjoyed and ordered for Daniel to be released. The king hugged Daniel with joy and excitement. King Darius punished the jealous officials by throwing them and their families into the lion's den for deceiving him by trying to get rid of Daniel, whom the king loved. Then he made a new decree for the whole kingdom. Everyone must honor the God of Daniel, for he is the living God, whose kingdom will never end. Daniel's story teaches us an important lesson. When we stay faithful to God, he will always be with us, even in life's most dangerous situations. Long ago, after Adam and Eve left the Garden of Eden, they had two sons, Cain and Abel. Cain worked the land, growing fruits and vegetables, while Abel cared for sheep, leading them across the fields. One day, both brothers decided to bring an offering to God. Cain brought some of his crops as an offering. But Abel, he chose his very best lamb, the firstborn of his flock, and presented it to God with a thankful heart. God was pleased with Abel's offering, but he did not accept Cain's, not because crops were bad, but because Abel gave from his heart, while Cain's offering was given without true devotion. Cain clenches his fists. His face darkens with jealousy as he watches Abel. God saw Cain's expression and said to him, "Cain, why are you angry? If you do what is right, you will be accepted. But be careful, sin is waiting at your door, eager to control you. You must rule over it." The next day, Cain said to Abel, "Come with me to the field, brother." Abel follows, unaware of the danger. Suddenly, Cain attacks, striking his brother, who falls to the ground and dies. Now Cain stands alone, looking nervous as God's voice fills the air. "Cain, where is your brother Abel?" So Cain replied and said, "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" "What have you done, Cain? Your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground." Because of his sin, Cain was cursed. His land would no longer bear fruit, and he would become a restless wanderer. But even in his punishment, God showed mercy. He placed a mark on Cain so that no one would harm him, giving him a chance to turn back to what is right. Jealousy and anger can lead to terrible choices, but God calls us to choose love, kindness, and righteousness. Instead of letting jealousy take root, let's celebrate others and always give our best to God with a grateful heart.